Good evening. Sorry I'm late. Streamlabs decided that it wasn't going to work for the first 5 minutes, which is always fun. So I ended up scrambling to get set up. There we go. Oh, that was mighty stressful. Okay, where are we at? We finished last week. What did we do last week? We had just finished compound components, the introductory one too. We'd started making a toggle component. We'd just finished. Sorry for that. So we had just finished building a toggle component, and what have we done? We'd started to pass implicit state, not intrinsic, through to these components, and we did so by accepting children on the toggle, mapping through the children, and then working out if it was a composite component. Kinsey Dawes did this slightly differently, where he basically checked to see if it wasn't, where he would actually check and see if it was a string, so it would just be a DOM element. But this way works as well for now. Maybe it'll come back to bite me, but hopefully not. Let me just pop this out quickly. I had everything all set up and good to go, and then as soon as I pressed the go live button, it decided nothing was going to work. So excuse me for being a little behind. Okay, well, I have an intro video to watch anyway before I start actually programming anything. I just want to make sure, what were we on? This. On 2. There we go. And that was just adding the... Okay, so the final extra credit was passing in HTML elements and not having the state, the toggle state, passed onto that element. So that's cool. Okay, I think I can close this one. And let's open exercise 3. And then I'm just going to watch this introductory video, and then we'll see what the exercise is. All right. All right, good times. Okay, elaborate on our learnings. Nope. Next one. Okay. Right now, the component can only clone and pass props to immediate children. So we need a way for our compound components to implicitly accept the onState and toggle method regardless of where they're rendered within the toggle component's posterity. We want to do this through context. Makes sense. And React context is the API we want. Reach. I love reach. So it's cool we get to emulate this. Fundamental difference between this exercise and the last one is that we're now going to allow people to render the compound components wherever they like in the render tree. Searching through props.children for the components to clone can't speak today, would be futile, so we'll use context instead. Our job is to make the toggle context, and that will be used to implicitly share the state between the components. And then a custom hook to consume the context for the compound components to do their job. Cool. All right, let's see what it says. We are going to need some toggle context. So start with that. Create context. Default to null for now because I don't know what it's going to be. Move all of this and instead return a provider where the value is an object that has on and toggle on it. Okay, so I'm just going to type this before I get rid of it. So we want a toggle context provider. We want the value of that as an object that has on and toggle. We're going to return this. And let's just turn that off for now. Remove all of this and instead return. So we have this and we're accepting children. So I imagine we're just going to return children in here. So let's get rid of that. Tidy that up. Hey, we're back. We'll still get children from props, which is cool. But we'll get on implicitly from toggle context now. You can create a helper method to retrieve the context here. Thanks to that, your context won't be exposed to the user. Excuse me. Okay, so function retrieve context won't be exposed to the user. So I mean, we can just return this, right? Apparently we cannot use context that's called is neither a function component nor a custom. Let's leave that for now. I'll come back. Let's comment this out and let's put it in here to begin with. Let's deconstruct this because this is going to give us an object, so we can say on and toggle. Just going to get passed through here, and the toggle button no longer needs this, so we can just say props. That was good. All right, cool. So the button works, so that's always a good start. Let me just quickly check something. You can create a helper method to retrieve the context. Thanks to that, your context won't be exposed to the user. Not sure where I could put that helper method. It would need to be in either a function component or a custom React hook function. Of interest. No. Let's leave that for now. This is working. And do we have the solution for this? Extract state into context. And here's the extra credit. Go. I'm just gonna watch this video to see, well, primarily to just double check that I've done everything right. And secondly, to make sure, or to work out how this helper method is put together. All right. Nice. Mostly. So I previously created a function here, right? And I said function. Can't remember. What did I call it? Is I gonna call it retrieve context? Let's say I called it retrieve context. This is my helper method. Here. And all I want this to do is return React, use context, toggle context. So ESLint is going to throw a hissy fit and say it's called here. It's neither a React function component nor a custom React hook function. So I think the only way that React knows if it's a custom React hook function is if you use the keyword use, which I didn't know before. But it's certainly I don't know if it's just ESLint that's looking out for that, or if React itself is looking out for the use prefix on functions. So let's call this use toggle. We no longer need to get this from here. So we can say, yeah. Cool. So now the user doesn't have any access to the use context, but it can they can deconstruct the returned value from our use toggle helper method, and this can be used toggle as well. Cool. So we've got a custom helper method, which is going to get our contextual values regardless of how far down the component tree. So that should still work. Yeah. Good times. All right, what's the extra credit? Custom hook validation. Change the app function. Yep. Oh, it's be an object if we're going to deconstruct it. Interesting. Okay, we have this anyway. I'm just going to refresh this. Why doesn't this work? Can you figure out a way to give the developer a better error message? Well, I think I actually just ran into the problem there because we just returned the button here and we don't return this toggle parent, then the context on this provider is never set. So this is going to look up and there's going to be nothing, there's going to be no providers above it that's going to be able to provide this value. So what it's going to do is it's going to look in here and it's going to look for the default value. And previously that was null. So then our use toggle is going to use context and try and get this, and it's going to return this value, and then we are going to destructure the returned value here. But the problem is that this is currently null, so it can't destructure it. So the first thing I instinctively did was add an empty object here to stop the error, but that's obviously not great because it doesn't tell anyone anything and it just fails silently. Can you figure out a way to give the developer a better error message? Instead of just immediately returning this, we could say const context is this. If there's no context, otherwise return context. All right, so what are we gonna do here? Throw a new error. Toggle context provider not found. Wish I could spell. That's now an empty object, so that's actually passing, so let's go back to null. Cool, so we have an uncaught error. Toggle context provider not found. Which is cool. So this would work in the sense that it wouldn't error, but because we're never setting the state, then it will never actually toggle the switch. It'll always just be on. Or I suppose we can have it off here too. But that's cool. Let's leave it as null. This is going to mount. This is going to try and use toggle. Use toggle is going to come in here. It's going to look for the context. There is no provider above it, so it's going to revert to the default value, which will return null. Context is falsy because this currently equals null, so we're going to throw a new error and just say that we couldn't find the toggle context provider. Whereas if we uncomment this, it can now find the context, so it should work as normal. Good times. Nice. All right. I'm just going to take a quick 1 minute break. Get some dad jokes. All right, so we're moving on to prop collections and getters. What have I got? A minute and a half video. So I'll just be off mic for another minute and then we'll get started with the next exercise. All right. It's starting to get a little bit complicated. Let's complete this. Okay, so nothing should happen here. And then on the final, toggle on and off, and then toggle on this button. All right, exercise 4. Churning through these. In typical UI components, you need to take accessibility into account. For a button functioning as a toggle, it should have the ARIA pressed attribute set to true or false if it's toggled on or off. In addition to remembering that, people also need to remember to add the on-click handler to call toggle. Lots of the reusable flexible components and hooks that we're going to create have some common use cases, and it would be cool if we could make it easier to use those components and hooks the right way without requiring people to wire things up for common use cases. Make sense? In the simple example, this isn't too much for folks to remember, but in more complex components, the list of props that need to be applied to elements can be extensive. So it could be a good idea to take common use cases for the hook and simply spread across the UI they render. Make sense? All right, let's add a property called toggler props. It should be an object that has ARIA pressed. Oh, thank you. Oh, no, we did not want that. Cool. So our use toggle now has common props. We're able to grab those props from the toggle hook, and we can just spread it onto both of these. Cool. Okay, cool. I mean, that's relatively easy. I wondered if a regular button added the ARIA pressed. So let's inspect these elements. Just gonna open this up here. let's just put this over here for now. And then inspect this button. So it only has the ARIA label attached to it. I would have thought if I click that... Oh, because you're doing a toggle, that's why it needs the ARIA pressed. Got you. Okay, that makes sense. I just had to sound that off. Alright, extra credit. Let's do some prop getters. Someone wants to use our toggler props object, but they need to apply their own on-click handler. Try doing that by updating the app component to this. So we have this as normal. Got this, we spread the props, and then we pass a custom on-click handler. So that will work for the button. Well, no, it won't. It will console info this, but it won't call the toggle function. So the button won't actually change. Can you change it to make it work? Would love to. Okay, so our button is here, and then we have our toggler props, which we will spread. And then we're going to pass an on click, which is going to console.info. Cool. So we've added that to the button. And if I hit this, it triggers the on button click in the console, but it does not change the button because this entire function has been overridden. So can you change it to make it work? What if we change the API so that instead of having an object of props, we call a function to get the props? Then we can pass that function the props we want applied, and that function will be responsible for composing the props together. Let's try that. See if you can make that API work. Okay, so what's the difference? Get toggler props. Button is going to spread. Oh, this is getting good. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this because I'm lazy. Instead of taking toggle props, we are going to get toggler props, and just going to put this here for now. Return null. And here too, let's see this. So we're going to get toggler props. I find that quite hard to read, so I'm just going to say const button props equals. So, and then I'm just going to spread props here. There's absolutely no harm in obviously where this is now. I just find it a little bit easier to read while I'm working out how to do it. So I'm just going to put that there, and then I'm going to spread switch props. Cool. So nothing should work here as expected. Now we need, first off, pretty sure we can just move that in here, and let's return this instead. And let's return that. So we've now got access to it. So we're going to pass an options object here. Get toggler props on. What is the benefit of passing on to the toggler props? This makes sense, because we're just going to attach that. But why? So we're basically going to get the prop. What if we change the API so that instead of having an object of props, we call a function to get props? So this has to return an object. We can then pass that function the props we want applied, and that function will be responsible for composing them. We're going to get a bunch of options here. This obviously isn't correct, but I'm just going to spread options here. So it's going to call it with that object. So this on click, I'm just going to move this into an isolated component so you guys can see the logs. If I click this, the on button click should now fire. So that's been passed. And if I inspect it, it has the custom button ID. So we're just creating a function that's basically returning the same object that's passed into it. Very handy. What we need to do is compose these together. So how do we do that? So composing is relatively easy, right? So say we do toggler props, which will give us this area pressed on off, and then it'll allow them to put their own options on top of that. Problem being, we're going to run into the same problem when we hit this on click, because this will spread this on click method, and then we're going to spread this options object, pardon me. Should probably save it. Yeah, I was going to say that should work. I was panicking there. So this works because it will have access to the on property here, and then it will also have access to the area pressed and this on click, which will toggle. So this will work. However, this will not. This is triggering the console log. Let's put that here to show you. So this is working. This is not. I'm not sure how you would compose the functions together. This is tricky. So what I want this to give me is this, and I want this to be a function. Turns this. It's basically what I want. That's the composition that I want. Because this should now work. Okay. Okay, what if say on click and other options? We return an on click property here, and which is just going to be a function. We're just going to call the toggle, and then on click is passed to it. Call on click. So we're deconstructing on click from the options that are passed through. We spread the toggler props, which is not what we want, because, well, I mean, it will work, because this will give us an area press, then it will give us an on click. We then spread these options, which would be the area label and the ID. And then finally, we declare an on click handler, which is a function which will always toggle. And then if an on click is provided in the options object, it will execute that. So this should work. Whether it's the right thing is a different story. Yeah, cool. At least that works. What's not great about this, we're spreading the toggler props on click and then overriding it here. And we would need to do this manually for every prop that could potentially be composed. But I am unsure what the better way to do that is. At least it works, eh? Just going to close this, and I am going to see what Kent makes of this. All right, that's cool. We were like 80% on the way there. The only thing I was missing was a little bit of magic. So very much as it is here. I'm just going to put this here so it resembles what Ken had, which is cool. I think he had it the other way around as well. Don't think it matters. Okay, so we're going to call toggle and this. But we're going to do this fancy function. Let's call all. Call all is going to accept an argument with any number of functions. And then it is going to return any number of arguments that are passed to that function. For each function that is provided to call all, the function exists, call it with all the arguments. So for onClick, I can replace that with call all onClick toggle. Call all is going to accept any number of functions. I understand multiple functions being passed in here. That makes sense. Don't understand where the args come from here. Let's see what we've got here. So let's just drop that and let's go here for a sec and let's open this. Cool. So the arg that is passed there is just the onClicks event, the synthetic event passed by the onClick. Okay, that's cool. That makes sense. Because we are passing, this will spread this on. Which will have that attached to it. And that will be here. Makes sense. That is amazing. Double check this works before finishing up. That's cool. I mean, I would never have arrived at this. But I mean, everything else was pretty much on point. Basically just checking to see if this exists, call it, and then call the two of them at the same time. Nice. Pretty happy with that, actually. And I definitely learned something with that. Uh, yeah, that was actually pretty fun. I didn't really get stuck. And one question I have actually is, where is it? Why do we pass on? I suppose that just puts it all in a single line, right? It means I no longer need this because on will be attached. Kind of weird way to do it. We already have it destructured here, so you could just add it here. But we're passing it on to the, I suppose, if there was any composition being done. Maybe it's just good practice to have it all going through on the same function. I'm going to ask anyway. Why do we pass on? Cool. All right, it's 9:05. I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break and grab some water and stuff, but I'll be back just 11 minutes past. Alright, I'm back. I'd say kitchen to find water and found a beer, so that worked out well. Okay. So this is cool. I really like this call all. Probably the best thing I've learned so far. And that is doing a prop collection. So in doing so, we're able to provide a function to the user, which is going to give all the props that we want to attach to our elements, and it's also going to allow them to put their own on top of it without overriding. Just going to hit complete on this. And complete on this. Cool, so we're on to state reducer. Exercise 5. Alright, cool. There's like a 1 minute intro video, and then there'll be an exercise to follow it because the solution's here. So I'll be off mic for about 1 minute. All right, let's make a state reducer. During the life of a reusable component, which is used in many different contexts, feature requests are made over and over and over again to handle different cases and cater to different scenarios. We could definitely add props to our component and add logic in the reducer for how to handle these different cases, but there's a never-ending list of logical customizations that people could want. Okay. In this exercise, we want to prevent the toggle from updating the toggle state after it's been clicked 4 times in a row before resetting. Cool. So this is continuing to toggle, which we don't want. I think what we actually want here is, yeah, this will no longer toggle until we reset. Cool. Me too. In this exercise, we want to prevent the toggle. We could easily add the logic, but instead we're going to apply a computer science pattern called the inversion of control, where we effectively say, here you go, you have complete control over how this thing works. It is now your responsibility. Your job is to enable people to provide a custom reducer so they can have complete control over how state updates happen in the toggle component. Makes sense? Looking forward to it. Okay. Use that call all again, which is cool. We have a toggle reducer. Add a new option called reducer that defaults to that. Okay, so use toggle is going to take an initial on and a reducer. I'm just going to default to the toggle reducer. I think I know what's going to happen here. We're going to compose the reducers. Okay. Instead of passing toggle reducer here, pass the reducer that's provided as an option, and that's it. And that's it. Don't forget to check the extra credit. So default state reducer action types. Okay, so what, we just pass the reducer here. We have used toggle here, and for our reducer we are passing this custom one. If it's clicked too much, which is greater than 4, so we have some implicit state, derived state here, based off of this. So this should now work. Cool. Alright, that was nice and easy. Let's just ditch that. Yeah, in a more realistic scenario, people may struggle with having to basically re-implement the entire reducer. So see if you can provide a nice way for people to be able to use this if they so choose. Feel free to test this out by changing this to use the default reducer. Feel free to test this out by changing the toggle state reducer function, which is here, inside the app, to use the default reducer instead of having to re-implement what to do when the action type is reset. So now I'm going to show how little I understood the call all. Use toggle. Ah, okay. I was going to massively overcomplicate that. Okay, so this is in scope for everything. The action type is toggle, and if it's clicked too much, do this. Instead of a switch statement, I don't need a switch because I've only got one action here. So it's toggle, and I've clicked too much. then return and a state object where on is the current on state. So freak. What's the on equals state? Okay. Otherwise, return toggle reducer and pass the state next. So we don't need to define this, and we don't need to define this, because we're going to first check and see if the action type is toggle. And whether the users already click too much. Got you. Okay, that makes sense. That's cool. I thought that would still be a switch, and then I suppose that doesn't make sense because you can't really compose the switches together. Okay, state reducer action types. Requiring people to know what action types are available in code for them is just asking for annoying typos, unless you're using TypeScript. See if you can figure out a good way to help people avoid typos in those strings by perhaps putting all possible action types on an object somewhere and referencing them, instead of hard coding them. Okay. Requiring people to know what action types are available to. Yes, let's create an object. We have toggle. This is the string of toggle. It's kind of like a little dictionary, I suppose. Toggle, reset, and actually it doesn't need to live in here. We have toggle and reset here. So we could just have the action types in here. And then there's no composition required here. So I don't see why we would need to make this a function. We could just return let's just say actions. So we now expose all of our actions to the user. Actually, let's So what I want to do here is I want to move this up here because then it's in scope for this. And that means I can do actions.toggle on this. Problem is that relies on all of this being in the one file. So if I was to publish this hook, it needs to go in here. Yeah, it needs to be in here. To be fair, I could... It's a little bit overkill, but I could do action types. I could grab these. And I could just do that. Don't even need to bind it there. I could just do that. Now they're in scope and they'll be passed through. So now, because these are here, I can use this. And I can also, now I'm passing it through as actions on the hook. And I have the actions. Move this up here. It's a function, so it will get hoisted. Let's just destructure this. So we'll say toggle and reset actions. We actually only need toggle from the actions here. Okay, that should work. Ah! Cannot access toggle before initialization. Toggle. Okay, let's not deconstruct. I thought that would work. Okay, use toggle returns this, which returns actions, which is action types. So here's my use toggle. So here's my actions. I have toggle and I have reset. And that is freaking out. Oh, hey Chico. I am working through Kinsey Dodd's Epic React course. Let's open this up. It's basically a walkthrough of different modules all about React, which is pretty cool. So it starts off with some sort of like fundamental principles, welcoming you to React, and then it's getting progressively more complex. So I've been working on this for like a month or so now, maybe a little bit longer. And I've managed to make my way through the first, what's that, the first 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 modules. So I'm now on 5. Maybe a month, maybe about 6 weeks, something like that. Yes, reasonably. Certainly not an expert, but I can fumble my way through some things. Clearly not this exercise. Thanks for the follow over. Much appreciated. Are you a JavaScript developer, Chico? Nice. What sort of stuff do you work in? Cannot access actions before it's initialized. Nice one. Maybe you can help me solve this. I have declared action types at the top of my file. I have a custom React hook here, which returns an actions object, which is basically just grabbing the action types from here. And the reason I've declared it up here is so I can use it in my reducer. And it's going to be in scope here without having to pass it through as an argument. I'm using the hook here and I'm grabbing the actions that is passed through, and I want to use those actions in my custom reducer, and it's not working. Why is it not working? Just going to set this to string toggle. Let's clear the console. So this should now work. Ooh, it doesn't. Cannot access actions. Okay, where is this called? That's why. It's because it's passed through as a reducer before this value gets returned to me. The console is telling me I can't access actions before it's been initialized. And it's because I'm using this use toggle, which accepts an object property reducer, which takes this custom function that we're passing through. The problem is I'm trying to access the returned value as part of this function, which isn't going to let me do it. I mean, this would work, right? And then I wouldn't need this. Cool, so that works, but the problem is if this was in another file, it wouldn't have access to these. Am I making a front? What do you mean, sorry? Juicer. What if no questions are stupid, man. I'm not making a front end for this. I'm just completing an exercise. I don't think this is part of like a bigger project. I think it's more like smaller problems, like textbook examples sort of thing. Actions available here. I don't even know if you can do that. Here's the available actions. So on this reducer, type initial state, we need to somehow pass actions through to it. So I use toggle. It's a reducer here. Let's look at the use reducer hook. Yeah, see, that's just in there that you can pass to that. It's tough. Okay, I need to dial back a step because that's not the way to do it. I want to make actions available if we're going to use this toggle. I'm going to pass it a reducer here. Initial on. Just going to read the exercise again. Maybe I missed something. Where are we at? See if you can figure out a good way to help people avoid typos in those strings by perhaps putting all possible action types on an object somewhere and referencing them instead of hard coding them. So that's what I'm doing here, right? I am currently referencing these here, but comes at the limitation that if I was building an app outside of this file, I wouldn't have access to this. I mean, I could build it in another function, but it feels like it should be part of this. Because then this should let them know which actions are available to them. Although and say, I think I may be overthinking this because we're returning this anyway. Which is in the same file. Gonna give this 5 more minutes and then I'm gonna watch the video and see how he does it. I mean, this works currently, but it doesn't. It comes with a pretty severe limitation. Just make sure it works for the moment. Saved. Yeah, cool. Does toggle state reducer need to be inside app to be a hook? So this is just a custom. The purpose of this exercise is we have a hook that basically just toggles it on and off and resets it. The application has a special use case where if you, let's reset it. So the special use case is if you click more than 4 times, it blocks it from being turned off until you reset the button. So that's the special use case. And what we've built up until this point is we pass a custom reducer where we specify our own custom actions. And if those custom actions are not met, then just return the default reducer here, which is here. So then it will go through these. Wonder if I could pass the reducer through here, which is here. So instead of returning this here, and let's leave this as toggle for now so it works. So here's a function, right? And I'm passing that through as reducer. Why don't we const, let's just call it merged reducer for now. Can I just use the call all function? Can I just say const, where's it called? So I need to put it here. So const reducer, I can't call it that. I'll call it something much better than reducer 2 at the moment. If I say call all, and this will go in order. So I first want to call their reducer. And then I want to call toggle reducer. So that will call both the functions. Let's see. Let's merge reducer. And I'm going to make that an optional property. So if it's passed through, call it. So if I put a console log here, it says execute first. And then I put one in here. It says execute second. Let's clear that. And let's remove this for now. God damn it. Cannot destructure property on. I'm no longer passing actions through. I do not know. I'm perplexed. I'm going to put it back to my horrible solution. Not that horrible. I feel like I'm close, but I am running out of time. Okay, so that's not going to work. Oh no, that will work. Yeah. Let's clear that, make sure that's saved. And let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. What have I broken? Oh, all right. So now I'm back to something that works. Nice. Yeah, I would highly recommend giving React a shot, man. It's certainly my favorite framework to use. Okay, so this works. That's terrible. So I'm just going to quickly watch the inversion of control solution. All right, it's a 2-minute video. I'm just going to go off mic while I watch this video. Okay, I'm really glad I watched that because I had the answer. There's actually something missing from this file. So in the video, there's 2 things here. One is pretending that we are exporting from here. So we would export, use toggle, and something. What do they have? Yeah, so he's exporting use toggle and the toggle reducer. And then we're pretending this is a new file, so we're importing use toggle reducer. Use toggle. So instead of passing it through here, which obviously doesn't work, we actually just add it to this export. Which is gonna just rename it. Types. So we're pretending that we're going to export these action types and we're going to import them in this file, which means that this will now have access to it. I knew I had it right. Nice. Cool. Well, that's cool. That's cool that that works. Yes, it is a paid course. Yeah, well worth its money. From, I mean, I've been using React for years now, and I'm still learning something pretty much every lesson. So I highly recommend you pick it up. Unfortunately, I am out of time. It's 10 o'clock, and I usually stream from 8 to 10. So it was cool to meet you. Is it Chico? Chico? Terrible at pronouncing Twitch handles. It was cool to meet you, man. I hope you pick up React. And yeah, give me a follow and follow along. Maybe you can learn some things with me. See you later, buddy. Alright, I will be back on Thursday at 8 o'clock when what will I be working on Thursday? I'm going to start working on control props. So, until then, see you then.